Hello there. This is Quentin Russell with Doc 365, and today I'm here to present a webinar on the core features that you should be expecting from your contract management system. Before I begin, I'd like to point out that the purpose of this webinar is to both help you potentially identify a good quality contract management system and provider if you do not already have a contract management system. And the other purpose is to help you examine your current contract management system provider to see if there's someone that you want to continue on with. And this is going to help provide you tools to properly evaluate them, the system you're using. That way, if you're not entirely satisfied, you'll have a rubric that you can use to either request new features from them or as with the other party, help you figure out what you should be looking for if you determine that you need to switch over to a new contract management system. With that said, let's talk about today's agenda. So what we're going to be talking about today, first of all, we're going to introduce ourselves, tell you a little bit about us and Doc 365. And then from there, we'll do a little bit on what a contract management system is. And then after that, we'll jump straight into the topic of the webinar. We'll go over the core features that you should be expecting from a contract management system. As part of that, we'll be going into a live demo environment featuring Doc 365's contract management system. And so we'll use that as a prime exhibition point so that you can really see what I'm talking about without having to really picture it or have an unclear idea of that. After that, we'll take a look at a couple things that you should be looking for, not just from the contract management system, but from the contract management system provider. So questions you should be asking yourself and things that you should be looking for as you evaluate the different vendors that you might potentially be working with. After that, we'll do a quick question and answer session. So the way we'll handle that is throughout the webinar. If anyone has any questions, they can feel free to type those out into the chat. What I'll do is I will go through those in chronological order, answering them to the best of my ability. If there's anything I cannot answer during this time, I will make sure to research that answer and provide it as part of the free webinar recording that we will be sending out later today. With that said, let's jump into the actual webinar proper. So, who are we? Well, we're Doc 365. We're located in Jacksonville, Florida, and our team has almost 19 years of experience working with Microsoft products to deliver exceptional productivity solutions. So we are a Microsoft Gold certified partner, and we specialize in Office 365 productivity solutions. So we design them to take full advantage of the Microsoft/Office 365 suite of programs, specifically SharePoint Online, to help organizations get the most out of their subscription so that they can kind of incorporate everything they're doing under the Office 365 umbrella so that, they're getting everything they can out of that investment instead of having to spend, enormous amounts of money juggling multiple separate systems. This way you just have single sign-on and everything is ready for you under that one umbrella. Moving on from here, let's take a look at what a contract management system is. So a contract management system is a piece of software designed to aid organizations with their ongoing contract processes. So these come in all shapes and sizes, and they boast a wide array of potentially helpful features. So anything from the ability to store contracts, create them, that sort of thing. It should be noted that just because a system can help with contracts, that does not necessarily make it a contract management system. For instance, SharePoint is very good for storing files. You can use the document library function, but inherently SharePoint is not a contract management system. Same thing goes with like Microsoft Word. While you can use that to help you create contracts, it in and of itself is not a contract management system. These are going to have features that are specifically built to aid with the contracting processes. And in fact, let's take a look at what some of those core features are. So in our experience, we found that there are 5 main core features that all contract management systems really need to have in order to properly identify themselves as a contract management system. The first of these being a central repository. So basically the ability to take all of the contracts you're working with and store them under one platform while still being able to maintain unique pieces of data about them. So the difference between a non-disclosure agreement and a statement of work, being able to track that information, but also filter out and see those specific bits of information without having to see everything at once. Another key feature that you should expect is the contract creation / intake process. So basically the ability to either smoothly create contracts either from templates or through various building blocks, whatever that looks like, and then enter them into the system, or to take third-party contracts that you might have received from vendors or something like that, upload them to the system, but still make sure that you're tracking their unique pieces of metadata. So things like expiration dates, the time that you need to potentially provide like a notice to cancel or a notice to renew. Another key feature that you should be looking for is workflow management. So basically the ability to manage where contracts need to go, make sure that you have your approval flows in the system so that instead of employees having to manually remember these things, instead the system will take over, send things to where they need to go without too much input from the employees, which can really help take away a lot of the human error that tends to pop up in the contract management process. Another thing that you should be on the lookout for is activity / obligation tracking. So, if people make changes to the system, if people need to assign tasks out to one another, if there are obligations within the contract that people need to be on the lookout for, all of these should be able to be tracked within the contract management system so that you have more visibility into what's going on, where the contract is at its various stages, who is supposed to be working on what, so that there's no part of this process that gets lost. And then the last big core feature that you should be on the lookout for is the ability to manage your vendors and the parties that you're working with. So when we say party, we mean, either vendor or customer, employees, unique organizations, government entities, just anyone that you are entering into a contract with. And you'll need the ability to track, various information about them. So like their address, the points of contact, potentially insurance information. You also need to be able to see all of the various contracts you have with them so that you can see all of the various deals you're working on. And all of this needs to be visible within the system. It needs to be accessible. And you need to have the ability to control said visibility and accessibility. So what does all of that look like? Well, let me just share a different screen real quick. So what we're looking at here is the dashboard for our contract management system. So as I stated previously, this is built on top of Office 365 and SharePoint Online. So one of the big benefits of our system over other systems is that rather than having to learn a whole new platform and storing everything on someone else's servers, all of your contract data would be stored on your existing Office 365 tenant. So you have full control over the data. It's a lot easier to learn how to use because it's still Office 365. It's still SharePoint Online. We've just updated the user interface and made things more accessible to the average user. With that said, kind of just showing you what things are going to look like. So taking a look at, say, for instance, the central repository. So for us, all of our contracts are stored here under the contracts tab. So let me just reset this filter here. So here you're able to see things like the actual contract's name, the party that we're working with, who the owner on that contract is, where it's at in its life cycle. So has it been sent out for counterparty review? Is it expired? Is it terminated? With our central repository, I have the ability to fully filter this information out too. So say, for instance, I want to find all of the non-disclosure agreements that we've entered into. I'm able to do so because that's metadata that we've entered about that contract. And for a good contract management system to work, you're not just storing everything, but it needs to be accessible, and the data that you're storing needs to be customizable. Well, with our system, if I just jump out to here real quick, you have the full ability to modify and customize the fields that people are entering information into. So this can, rather than having to adjust your contract processes and the way that you're storing things to the system you're purchasing, you instead have the ability to customize the system around what you're doing, so there's less of a process interruption. And then, that's just something that you should be looking for when it comes to how contracts are stored in any sort of contract management system. Taking it a step further, you should also be able to get pretty deep in how you're filtering that data. So for instance, you want to find all of the contracts you're working with, say, a specific vendor. You want to find all the non-disclosure agreements, and then you want to just get as complex as you'd like. Well, you're able to do so to find specific contracts that you might be looking for. And then from here, say you need to access this relatively often, well, you can save all of that here. So rather than having to refilter that out every time, you can get access to specifically what you're looking for to help you save time. And that's just something that should be standard in all contract management systems. Unfortunately, it's not. And that can definitely be a filter point for when you're looking at different systems, is how not only just can it store all your contracts, but how is it storing your contracts, and does it make it easy for you to find the various contracts that you're working with? So from this point, I want to take a look at the contract creation / intake process. So this is something that should be standard in all contract management systems you look at. You should have the ability to use it to help you build your contracts. Just to kind of show you what that looks like, I will go to add a contract in our system. And so as you can see here, rather than just having like a default contract form, which a lot of contract management systems are going to have, instead what you have the ability to do is to build the contracts from various contract templates. So rather than filling out like that standard form, like I was saying, and then customizing the contract from there, instead what you're doing is you are taking pre-built document templates, so the existing contract templates you're already using, uploading them to the system, and then building out how those are going to get filled out. So for instance, like right here with this, like say I go to create a non-disclosure agreement, instead of having to copy and paste, manually add things, what I instead am able to do is I'm able to just fill out these different fields. And then once I've, filled everything out and saved it, it's going to populate all of that into a pre-built document template. So it's going to take me maybe a minute or two to do this. But if I go to take a look at, say, like a statement of work, of course, there's going to be a lot more information that I'm going to need to fill out, but this is going to make sure that everything is correct, that everything is custom, and that there's going to have to be less back and forth when it actually comes to creating that contract, because you need to have all of the data up front to even create the contract. And additionally, you're just going to be able to do it a lot faster. And that's something you need to be looking at, is not just can it help you create contracts, but how fast does it help you create contracts? So like, for instance, if I just want to come here and fill out this information, as you can see, I've hit save. It took me maybe 15, 20 seconds to do that. And what it's now doing is it's building out that contract for me. So I don't have to worry about formatting. I don't have to worry about using the latest version. I can instead just know I've used this template. I have built this contract in the system. It's ready to go. And all it took me was about a minute. And that's something you need to be looking at when it comes to selecting different contract management systems. How easy is it to build the contracts, and how custom are you able to build them out and set them up? So moving on from this point as well, as you can see here, it's also built out a full listing for the contract. It's placed it within a pre-canned file structure. So you don't have to worry about setting this up, customizing it, moving things to where they need to go. The system is going to take over and do that for you so that you can focus on what really matters. You don't have to do as much of the mundane work. Going back a bit, our system also allows you to build contracts using customer and vendor paper. It's the exact same process, except instead of just filling out this information and having it be populated into a pre-built document, you would instead just upload the contract that you're wanting to use alongside that. It's fairly simple, fairly intuitive. Whatever contract management system you're looking at going forward, it should be a similar sort of process where you don't have to do anything over involved. There's no complicated document uploading process. You can just drag, drop, set up the metadata however you'd like and go from there. So from here, with our contract management process, as you can see, with our system, we've created the contract listing. We're ready to begin editing it and other things like that. One thing that you should be on the lookout for as a kind of special add-on for the contract creation process is you should be on the lookout for any type of system that's going to offer you a clause library. So a clause library is a fantastic resource as it allows you to take all of your most used contract clauses and build them out within the library and then deploy them without having to type them out each time. So for instance, just to show you what Doc's clause library looks like, I'm going to take this information. I feel that we need to add a roles and responsibilities clause. So I am just going to insert that clause into the document. It took me about 10 seconds to do that, to identify the clause I wanted to add and get it in there. And then it's fully formatted, so I don't have to worry about making those changes. I don't have to worry about how it's going to look in the document. This is definitely something that you should look for because it's going to help you save time. Because even if you can't just use the document templates and you need to be more custom in how you're building your contracts, the clause library is still going to help you because you're still probably going to be using a lot of the same clauses, a lot of the same formatting. So it's going to help you with that as you build and shape these various contracts. So jumping out of here and taking a look at workflow management. So figuring out where the contract's going to go next, who it needs to be in front of. Well, just to show you what that looks like with Doc, our workflow tab allows you to build and customize a series of different workflow templates. So rather than just having one bog standard process, you're able to choose to say, okay, well, we're working with a vendor contract. It needs to go here, here, and here. So I'm going to choose this template and it's going to build out the different stages for you. And this is just something you should be looking at the bare minimum, because this is going to help your various users make sure that the contracts are going to where they need to go, that people are getting the proper notifications for these sorts of things, and that no one is able to really say, hey, I never got this, or hey, I lost the contract. Because the system's going to keep a record of that. It's going to take over. It's going to send things out to where it needs to go. So just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to start this workflow. It's going to send a notification out to this user. It's going to update the status of the contract. That way, you don't have to worry about doing that yourselves. Everything's up to date. You have full tracking on it. And from here, you're just able to move it through the various stages of the contract process, getting it to where it needs to go, sending the workflows and updating the tasks. And then once you've completed that workflow, it's going to, again, update the status of the contract. It's going to send a notification back to the owner, letting them know it's fully approved so it doesn't get lost or doesn't sit somewhere and languish. And then also, and that's just something that any contract management system should be doing by default. But additionally, there's some other things that you can do, for instance, that say our system can do, and it's definitely something you should expect from other systems. So with our system, you're actually able to make it so that a workflow is auto-applied to contracts based off of specific metadata. So things like location, the type of contract, the dollar amount of that contract. But you're also able to, with our system, attach different contract workflow templates to contract templates, so that every time someone goes to use that contract template to create a contract, it's going to add this workflow so that they know that that's what they need to be doing. And these are all just different things that you should be on the lookout for when it comes to the different, workflows and everything that the contract management systems are offering. So backing out into here just to show you activity and obligation tracking. So you need to also be able to make sure that you're tracking everything about a contract, whether that's, giving employees the ability to leave notes for one another, whether that's giving them the ability to create notifications. So basically like either recurring or one-time notifications where instead of employees having to remember to set these up, the system's just going to automatically take over, send notifications out to people without you having to worry about that. And that's just something you should be expecting by default from these different contract management systems. Another thing with like the different activities and the different notifications as well, you should also be looking on the lookout for a system that's going to help you by sending notifications when a contract reaches a certain point within its expiration, when you provide a notice to cancel a review. Our system does that personally. So like if you see here, we actually have a listing for contracts that are going to expire within 30, 60, and 90 days. It's also going to send email notifications to contract owners, letting them know that they need to review that. That is definitely something you need to be on the lookout for. But also our system is going to allow you to do things like assign different tasks out to people. So whether these are like one-time things that need to be completed, just to make sure that everything flows smoothly with the contract. And then all of these tasks are going to be listed here alongside what they are, their description, who they've been assigned out to. So you can manage that and hold people accountable for what they should be doing. And then also with obligations. So just any time in a contract's life cycle when someone needs to deliver on something. So whether you need to collect something from the other party or they need to collect it from you, you're able to build these out here. So things like collecting background checks, insurance information, payments, all of these can be listed out here, assigned to various users just to make sure that they're being completed. This is something you should expect from contract management systems by default. Obligations are a huge part of the contract management process. So making sure that you're up to date on those and making sure that they're being completed is especially important. And then also just making sure that you're able to see a history of the changes that have been made. So where a contract's been in its life cycle, who's made changes, when they made those changes, what they changed. All of these are important to keep track of for compliance purposes so that nothing gets changed without you really knowing. And then finally, the last big bit is just vendor and party management. The ability to know what's going on with the organizations you're working with, to collect important information about them, like their address, what type of service they offered, so that you can keep track of this information for your own records, and to make sure that it's custom, so that you're not just collecting based on the system, but based off of what you need to be collecting. For instance, sometimes you're going to need to collect different documents from the other organization. Things like licensing information, invoicing information. You need to track things like any questionnaires that you might have sent out to them or collected back from them. Especially good systems are going to give you the ability to set up things like expiration dates for these, so that, say you've collected someone's insurance information, you'll be able to collect that, get a notification sent back to the party owner or manager, letting them know that they need to collect the updated version of that document. You should also be able to track things like whoever the point of contact in the organization is, what contracts you have with them. So instead of having to just keep track of random information or having to filter that out every time, you can instead just come here to the party and say, hey, what contracts do we have? Can we potentially use this to negotiate a better deal? Something like that. An amazing system is also going to help you do things like list and track things like insurance information, licensing information, the overall performance of the vendor. So you're like being able to rate them and see how well they're delivering on the various services that they're providing to you, and then seeing how those services change over time so that you can accurately determine whether you want to continue working with them or not. Now, I should point out these are just some of the core features. There are definitely other features you need to be on the lookout for, things like full reporting options, dashboards that are going to offer you more in-depth information, a full-fledged contract intake process where users have to submit contract requests in order for them to even be created or processed in the system, and then just like a high degree of customization. And all of those are things that are going to help you. But what we've kind of talked about today are definitely the core features that if a system doesn't have it, you should definitely be going the other way. And additionally, if there's anything that you've seen in the demo environment that I have shown you up until this point, feel free to sign up for a free demo on our website. Just a quick 30 to 45 minutes. Like I said, this has just been a quick demo. I haven't gone into the full explanation of what this system can do and really shown off some of its higher tier capabilities. So if you're interested in taking a look at that, again, please sign up for a free demo. There's no obligation, and we won't, hound you until the ends of the earth. So jumping out of here and jumping back into the presentation. So finally, the last thing that we're going to talk about is what to look for in a contract management system provider. So there's three main things that you should be looking for. The first one being expertise. You should also be looking at their customer base, and then you should be looking for good deployment / service. So what do I mean by expertise? Well, first of all, you need to look at their overall authority. So how well do they understand the contracting process? How well do they understand their own platform? What is the use case and everything? Can they accurately explain that? How long has the organization been in business? What are their certifications? How long have they been offering their specific platform they're selling? How much have they iterated on it? Do they have a researched blog, and do they try to educate potential customers? All of these are questions that you really need to ask to kind of determine their expertise. If it's just kind of a website with a feature, maybe not. They need to have like a well-researched blog, educational resources, things that help people fully understand what their need is, what they're offering, and what they can do for that customer. Another thing you should look at is their customer base. So what does that look like? What organizations are they working with? Like, how big are they? How similar are they to your organization? How different are they? Where is their customer base? And what does their customer base think of them? Like, what are their overall reviews on the various websites? If they have testimonials on their website, what are the customers saying about them? Different things like that just kind of help you get a firmer glimpse of what life is going to be like if you decide to move forward with working with that organization. The last big thing you should look at is, deployment / service. Like, is it good? What is their deployment process going to look like? How long is it going to take? Are they actually being clear and communicative about what that's going to entail? How fast is the deployment process? Is it something that's going to take a year, 6 months, 2 months, that sort of thing? Are they responsive to your questions, and are they accommodating of your needs during the sales / negotiation process? What does their service look like? Is it a paid service? Is it a free unlimited service? Is it something you have to opt into? Do they have resources available for if they are not able to provide support given in a short period of time? What are their support hours? All of these are things that you need to be looking at when it comes to choosing your contract management system provider. With that said, that's the end of the webinar. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them out in the chat. In the meantime, like I said previously, if you're interested in exploring Doc's contract management system, based off of the glimpse that you saw today during the webinar, feel free to sign up for a free demo on our website. It's just a quick 30 to 45 minute, no obligation thing. We'll go on a more in-depth exploration of the system, explore your needs and see if there is a match there between the features in our system and the needs that your organization is seeing when it comes to their contract management process. Again, you can head on over to our website, mydoc365.com. There's a big button in the top right corner that just says free demo. Fill out the form. We'll get back to you within about a day. So yeah, I don't think there's any questions. So again, sign up for a free demo on our website. If you have any questions in general about contract management systems, feel free to contact us at our phone number, 904-309-9970, or at info@mydoc365.com. And if you appreciate our content and you want to support what we do, feel free to follow us on LinkedIn at doc365. So yeah, this has been Quentin Russell with Doc365. Thank you all for coming out today, and I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thank you very much, and goodbye.